Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to our police board meeting, the meeting of the Victoria-Esquimalt Police Board of December the 14th. I'd like to begin tonight's meeting with an acknowledgement that we are on the homelands of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, and to be mindful of their homelands as we make decisions that impact communities who have been here for thousands of years. We have an agenda before us, and I need a motion to adopt tonight's agenda. Thank you. Michaela, is there a seconder? Seconded by Patty. I will note for the public that you have with you this evening your almost entire police board. Mr. Crowder has sent his regrets, and online we have joining us Mayor Desjardins and board member Sean Dillon, and the rest of us are here in the room. I would like to, before we begin the formal business on tonight's agenda, make a special presentation to our Chief Constable, Del Manick. Tonight we will be presenting him with a 30-year police exemplary service model. And this is awarded to officers who have served in an exemplary manner characterized by good conduct, industry, and efficiency. The chief has been in policing for 30 years and has exhibited exemplary service in that time. He joined the Victoria Department from Vancouver in April of 1993. I'm not going to go through all of his various highlights of his career, but safe to say that he was joined the department as a constable second class. He's worked as an inspector, as a sergeant, as a staff sergeant, as deputy chief constable, both on the administration side and the operations side. And of course, he has been our chief in an acting capacity since 2015 and in an official capacity since 2017. So Chief, thank you so much for your service for 30 years and for your exemplary service. And we'd like to present you with a medal and a certificate this evening.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
It's good. Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Paulette, did I ask for a motion? Oh, there's online clapping too. That's great. I think I did ask for a motion to adopt the agenda, Paulette, but I can't remember. Did I yet? Okay, just in case, motion to adopt the agenda. Thanks, Charla. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Michaela. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. We do have a relatively light agenda this evening as we are at the end of a calendar year, but there is a lot of work that is happening by committees and in between meetings. So don't take the light agenda tonight as a sign that there is no work happening. There's a lot going on both operationally and at the governance level, some of which you'll hear about this evening. But the December board meeting always does tend to be a little bit light. So the first item of business is adoption of the minutes of the public meeting held November the 16th. Would someone move to adopt the minutes? Thanks. Paul, seconded by Patty. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, that carries. Next, we go to the Chief Constable's updates, and we'll treat them one at a time just to see if there are any questions on the first one. So the first is the Chief Constable's monthly activity report and update. Chief, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Chair. So I'm just referring to my report that's submitted to the board. That's on page 4 of 28. And I'll just pick up a few highlights. I mean, the report's self-explanatory. On November the 18th, I had the opportunity to go visit grade 6 class at my old middle school, Central Middle School. Enjoyed that. Had a great time with the kids, and they were prepared that I was going to be showing up to the class. So they had a number of really thought-provoking questions around policing. The Victoria Police Department is partnered with the Heroes Hockey Program, which is helping at-risk students get into hockey and to kind of build their confidence and teamwork abilities and whatnot. And actually put on the skates and was out there with a couple of our other Vic PD officers just skating around with the youth and helping set up a few drills on the ice. Participated both in the Victoria Santa Lights Parade and the Esquimalt Celebration of Lights Parade. It's that time of year, and both parades very, very well accepted and turned out lots of, it was really important actually to see and really interesting to see how people really wanted to be out in community and kind of enjoy the parades and whatnot. So, and of course, Vic PD is very well accepted at these events. I attended the Vic PD Exemplary Service Award ceremony. Similar to the presentation that I just had from you, Chair, presenting 20 and 30-year medals to our officers. It's a bit unique that normally these presentations would be happening at Government House. So we're honored we'd be presenting these in kind of a more formal setting, but with COVID and with some of the restrictions, we've kind of had smaller gatherings, and we're trying to still recognize the importance of exemplary service from our officers, and we're doing it in the way that keeps everyone safe. A couple other things. We swore in, had a swearing-in ceremony for Vic PD's newest reserves. And so that was 11 new reserves that are now part of our Vic PD reserve program. I presented to the criminal justice program to a class at Colson College on December the 8th. Attended 2 events to appreciate our volunteer and reserves. So again, usually we have a more of a formal event recognizing our volunteers and reserves. So because of COVID, our volunteer coordinator, Ms. Tara Gilworth Scott, has really did an amazing job of making it special and doing it over 2 days, and just not allowing a lot of congregation to happen where people feel safe, but they feel appreciated for the work that they do and the volunteer commitment that they have throughout the year. Also attended the lunch hour Esquimalt holiday celebration luncheon at Esquimalt Rec Center. Mayor Desjardins was there with the Esquimalt Council, and Inspector Michael Brown was there as well as the officer in charge of the Esquimalt Division at that particular event. And on Saturday, this past Saturday, I dropped the ceremonial puck at the Victoria Royals hockey game and presented the trophy to the winning team between the Giants and the Royals, which the Royals ended up winning the game, come from behind victory. And we had our very own Constable Jason Ince along with their ceremonial unit assist Constable Ince onto the ice, and he sang the national anthem, which is always really good for Vic PD to engage with in community. And earlier today, I was presenting the Vic PD Civic Service Awards, a number of them at SJ Burnside School. So that was earlier today. A couple other updates that I have in addition to my activity report. I just wanted to highlight for you a couple incidents since the last board meeting. This one incident I wanted to highlight for you happened on November 28th, where it was a Saturday night at about 8 p.m. where Vic PD officers responded to the 3100 block of Douglas in the area about kind of Douglas and Finlayson by Geddes there. And 2 youths were robbed at gunpoint and by a suspect on a bicycle who approached the teenagers, produced a handgun and stole a number of personal items from them. And luckily no one was physically hurt. This was because it happened on the Saanich border. We had Vic PD officers, Saanich police officers, and our integrated canine team respond to the area. The suspect had fled, but the officers continued to investigate and to try to look for tips, and they were able to identify and locate the suspect within a suite of a multi-unit residential building in the 3200 block, like a block away, but over in Saanich's jurisdiction. Again, it was a team effort between Vic PD, Saanich PD, our integrated canine section, and our Greater Victoria Emergency Response Team and negotiators, and were able to resolve the incident, work through it, and the suspect ended up surrendering to police without any injury or any other further incident. The second incident I wanted to highlight happened on December the 8th, just after lunchtime, and it was our officers responded to a robbery and a stabbing in a business that had occurred in the 1500 block of Vancouver Street. The man reportedly stole money from a store, and when he was confronted by staff, he stabbed a staff member with a knife and then fled on foot. Again, our officers went around in the area, gathered the suspect description, and were able to eventually locate the suspect and make an arrest. And that individual was charged with robbery and assault with a weapon. So just a couple of incidents I wanted to highlight. I also wanted to just actually ask on Inspector Jones from our Community Services Division, just to talk a little bit about the new inhalation site that's opened up on Pandora. And so, Inspector, do you want to just provide an update for the board, please? Thanks.
I'm happy to. On the 29th of November, the inhalation site opened up in the 900 block of Pandora, just across from the harbor. The site is run by VIHA and in conjunction with a couple of other community partners. Most of our community services division have been through the site, are engaging very, very well with staff. By all accounts, it's going quite well. About an average of about 43 people a day have been using the site. So that's an increase certainly from the first week. No real reported issues of congregation on the streets thus far. So by all accounts, it's going really well.
Thank you for the update. That's my update.
Thank you. Are there questions for the chief? I just have one, Chief. You mentioned that we recruited and signed on, I know because I signed the forms, or Colette did on my behalf, 11 new reserve constables. Do you have a sense over the years what percentage of reserve constables convert into Victoria police officers?
Sure. I don't have the percentage. I'll ask Inspector McRae to kind of just comment, but the one general comment I'll make is that our reserve program significantly allows an opportunity, not just for volunteers to get an inside look at policing and also learn about the Victoria Police Department, but it gives our officers and a chance to kind of really assess the skills, the talent, the competencies of individuals. And we joke around with a lot of our reserves and we tell them that this will be their longest interview ever from the time that they're on. And I'm telling you that our coordinator for our reserve program, Constable Ryan Wilson, does an amazing job. It's done under the leadership of Inspector Grant Hamilton. It falls under the patrol division. And Constable Ryan Wilson really works with our human resources division in picking highly engaged, competent people that most of them have a desire to give back to the community and to be joining into the police department, whether it's here or any other police organization across BC. So Inspector McRae, do you want to just kind of add to the value of the reserve program, and if you got any numbers or anecdotally have something to share?
Yeah, I think the value is totally obvious and you just highlighted it. Inspector, do you have any, and if not today, no one knew I was going to ask this question, including myself, but it was, I think it's good for the board to know and the public to know if you have any data, say over the last 5 years, about how many reserve constables become police officers, either at Vic PD or elsewhere. So I don't want to put you on the spot tonight, but if you do have information, please feel free to share it. If not, maybe you could report back at the next board meeting with that information.
No problem. I'd be happy to report back. We know the number is very high, and at one point we did have the numbers. I don't think we've looked at it in the last couple of years, but happy to look at it again.
Excellent.
Great
Okay.
group of people, and I can share that.
Perfect. That's great. Yeah. So Colette will flag that for the next board meeting because we're doing a number of recruitment strategies, and the reserve program is probably one of our best recruitment strategies. And we can, let's look back at the conversion rate and see how that goes. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, seeing none, Chief, please go ahead with the equity, diversity, and inclusion update.
Sure, and you'll see the three things noted on the bottom of page 4 of my written report. Really, the focus from the last board meeting till this meeting was listening and meeting with the panel on Muslim voices. And so Mayor Helps was there representing the City of Victoria. Mayor Haynes was there representing Saanich. We had Inspector Rob Warren from the Saanich Police Department and myself. And so really thoughtful discussions, and there's a number of recommendations that the panel of Muslim Voices came up with. And so listening, there's some that are focused on policing and public safety, and some on data collection and whatnot. So I brought it to the area chiefs meeting on December 2nd. I invited one of the panelists on the panel for Muslim Voices to actually present to the area chiefs, just so collectively as a CRD group of police leaders, we could all hear the message. And I shared the recommendations with our CRD police chiefs. And what we've decided to do is we're going to really use the Greater Victoria Police Diversity Advisory Committee, who are highly engaged in the work that police chiefs are looking for in looking at the recommendations coming from the panel on Muslim Voices and charting a path forward of how we can collectively implement some of those recommendations. And so I'll leave my comment at that, and happy to take any questions if you have any. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the chief? Okay, I'll just add that I think the work that we're doing with the Muslim community fits with the wider work of the board in terms of supporting equity-seeking groups, all of the strategic objectives that we'll look at the end of our meeting, and also supports the department's work in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So this is a space where there's a lot of work to do. So yeah, just in case anyone feels like one group is being singled out for priority, I think that the Muslim women were on a panel and made some recommendations to us. And this will go with all of the other work that's happening with Indigenous communities, the Black community members, and so on. Okay, committee updates. Our finance committee chair is not here. So Sean, why don't I turn it to you? There are a couple of items here in governance, and then just to give Mr. Kirkholm a bit of a warning in Doug's absence, maybe you could detail items A, B, and C once we get to finance. Specifically, I mean, you could focus on all three, but I think the overtime report probably has the most meaty information in it. So just to flag that for you. But Sean, go ahead to highlight the governance items that we're bringing forward for presentation to the public and information.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've actually spoke to Doug, and I was offered to assist him with the finance portion as well. So thank you very much for picking that up as well. So for governance, I'll pick up on item A, which is the request for proposal by the Township of Esquimalt. The township will be conducting a survey, community policing engagement strategy, just to get a measure of the community's sort of feedback of how they feel their policing is coming along. And sort of it's a good opportunity for members of the Esquimalt community to have a little more engagement with their voice being heard. So that RFP, I believe, is going out, and Mayor, of course, Desjardins can jump in if she wishes to speak to any of that. If I missed anything, I do apologize. And then through Mayor Helps, if you'd like, I can go to the finance section. Would you just to highlight A, B, and C, if that's okay with you?
Sure. Let's first go to Mayor Desjardins. Is there anything that you wanted to add to item A?
No need.
Okay, and then just, I know it's written here in the agenda, but Sean, you didn't mention it. Could you just talk about the notice of civil claim re the Esquimalt Police Department, just so the public has some information on that?
Absolutely, yeah, thank you very much. So as the public may be aware, there is a notice of civil claim has been presented to the various entities such as the Victoria Police Department, the Township of Esquimalt, the City of Victoria, what have you. Survivor has brought forward this notice of claim, and I believe it was filed on November 12th. I will say that we have received copies, when I say received, the department, shall we say, has received that notice of claim. And at this time, as notice of claim as says, that the time period which it covers was when the department, as it's currently amalgamated, it was the pre-amalgamation days. So back when Esquimalt had its own separate police force, and of course Victoria has its own separate police force. With that being said, I believe the Township of Esquimalt will be has received this information and will perhaps provide further information as it comes forward. Same with any other entities that are involved, of department, what have you. But this came in very recently, so it is fresh. So when more information has come forward, as we navigate and work through this, the public will be made more aware of where things lead. And again, if any of the mayors wishes to have an opportunity to say anything to that, that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, the notice of a claim is fairly specific, as is written at the moment.
Thank you. Barb, anything to add? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say this is a very complicated situation, but basically it was Vic PD that was named in the suit, but police can't be sued. Township of Esquimalt has not yet been named, and nor has the City of Victoria. So we'll await and see how that goes, but I know that the chief and our staff have been in discussions, and this will likely be something that will continue to move forward in the courts. And for that reason, there is no other discussion about it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to Finance Committee. Sean, thank you for offering to help Doug in his absence. So I'll turn to you first, and then Mr. Hercombe, I may just ask you to give a bit more information on any of these, but particularly the overtime report, just because this is something that the public and the board are tracking quite closely with your assistance. Sean, go ahead.
Great, thank you very much, Mayor. Appreciate it. So we have 3 items that was discussed by the Finance Committee. Item A was the Lepard budget allocation formula, which is also part of the framework agreement. For those members of the public who may not know, we have what's called a framework agreement between the City of Victoria and Township of Esquimalt in terms of level of policing between each communities, including the cost allocation, which is also known as the allocation formula. Doug Lepard was a individual that the department engaged his services of to sort of get a reallocation of that formula to bring it up to line. As you know, this is an ongoing agreement, so what an allocation formula was previously attributed to does not necessarily mean it is more reflective of today's sort of costing and level of policing that each community would want to have or desire to have. That being said, what item A is really specific to is further discussions and sort of the further engagements of the Lepard allocation formula. As you can see, it really talks about staffing, a discussion between the 2 councils regarding the funding formula, and it talks about the cost per officer as well. So this is ongoing. This is sort of it's almost becoming a standing item, if you will. There will be more information to come, but basically at the present time, both councils are still working through this allocation formula, receiving information, sort of processing it, if you will, and then of course coming to sort of sort of a conclusion or consensus of that. So just want to show that this was discussed as part of our ongoing thing. It's something we've been talking about quite some time, and we'll provide more information to the public as it comes. So that's just basically more of information. Item B, which is a monthly financial report, which I'll refer to Mr. Hercombe. You can have the finances there in front of you, which also leads to item C, which Mr. Hercombe could talk about more specifically, which is the overtime report. You'll see a really fantastic graph there that sort of breaks down the where overtime is spent the most or used the most, shall we say, in a department. So what I'm going to do is, if it's okay with the Mayor, I would like to maybe pass out to Mr. Hercombe if he could add some context to either item B and or C to perhaps look at for the public's sort of knowledge and sort of information, if we could.
Great, thank you. So Mr. Hercombe, if you can just start by basically highlighting the highlights in your written report in terms of anything we should be paying attention to with the monthly financial report, and then we'll move on to the overtime report. And then we'll take questions on both of those at the end.
Sure. So first, the financial report. This is a monthly report that goes to the board. That brings us to November 25th, about 88% of the way through the year. So we are getting close to year end. We are still running slightly below budget, even with a significant number of retirement expenditures. You'll see in the report that there are some items that are over budget, overtime being one of them, and I'll cover that in a second. We also a little bit over in software, janitorial to do with COVID safety measures, and our equipment operating. These are more than offset by being under budget in wages due to unfilled vacancies, travel due to limited number of opportunities for travel and training, and also in communications due to some savings in that respect. I don't expect any major surprises before the end of the year. However, some goods won't arrive due to shipping bottlenecks, so we may have to roll over some of our capital funds to 2022 just for the delivery dates for those. Then just moving on to the overtime report for the same period of time. You'll see that we're slightly over budget on overtime. And as I mentioned, that is offset by being under budget in wages and some other items. Not really surprising given the staffing vacancies we have. And as Sean mentioned, there's a graph in the back on our patrol overtime. So you'll see that some of that overtime in patrol is statutory holidays, which is just part of our cost for maintaining 24/7 service. But you'll also see that the 2 next highest numbers are backfill and call outs. And that's some of that is driven by files and the need to have certain people here to deal with situations. However, some of that is also to do with backfill due to our staffing shortages and injuries to officers. On the admin side, you'll see that our overages are driven by critical incident stress management, community engagement, and also records. Records is a net zero because it's basically related to backfill for vacant shifts. So overall, records is within budget. It's just that where we have gapping, we have to fill those shifts, similar to patrol, to maintain some of those minimums. On the operations side, unsurprisingly, this is driven by frontline response. Patrol, beat bike, our assertive community treatment, and our community resource officers all over budget. Those are all to deal with frontline response, shortages on the front line, and to deal with some of the challenges with the sheltering and some of the other issues that we're seeing in the community. There is also overages on detectives, but that is mostly driven by grant-funded activities, so it's not really a net cost to the organization. The other significant overtime cost you'll see here is integrated units, which is driven by the Greater Victoria Emergency Response Team and by protests within our jurisdiction. And some of these, those in particular, are being taken into account with our 2022 budget to make sure that we have sufficient funding to deal with those. So I'll just hand it back to Shauna.
Great, thanks, Mr. Hercombe. Are there questions? I have one, and it's a question for the board and Mr. Hercombe, and I guess all of us. Looking specifically at 2560 patrol, I'll point out the three and then I'll make my point. 2580, line 2580, beat and bike, and then particularly 2520, the centralized, the GVERT line item. Our budget in 2021 is significantly lower, particularly with GVERT, than our actuals from 2020. So just what were we all thinking that we would budget so out of whack with the 2020 actuals? Is it was because we hadn't had the year ended yet when we finalized the budget? Or Mr. Hercombe, can you provide any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, we've, I know if you look in the budget document, there's some history there. We have been underfunding this for quite a few years. However, the activity levels have picked up significantly in the last 5 years. So, so it's kind of a mixture of, we were using some of our slack in our budget to offset some of these costs and contain the budget. I know we've been under pressure to keep our budgets increases low. So there was a little bit of that. However, we're seen to be catching up now to the reality that these costs are incrementally increasing every year. So we need to start budgeting more money towards those.
Okay, yeah, I 100% agree. So I guess we'll just flag for the 2023 budget that this overtime report that we're tracking now on a monthly basis be used as part of the basis for budgeting. So we've got a more realistic, because of these red numbers are giant, but they needn't be if we resource these things properly in the first place. That was more of a comment than a question, but anyone else want to add or say anything? Okay, the next item on the agenda is board co-chairs update. I don't believe that Barb and I have anything significant to report, just that we are having our twice a year meeting tomorrow with the Director of Police Services, which is a strong connection between our board and the province. So we'll report back anything that needs to be reported back at the next meeting. Barb, anything else?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to turn next to Charla Huber, who is the board's rep on the BC Association of Police Boards, also the president of that association. Charla, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you very much. We have had a very busy month at BCAPB. We recently had our board meeting, as well as we hosted fireside chats that were very successful on the evening of November 25th and December 9th. And we'll be ongoingly hosting these events where board members bring up areas that they would like to learn more or have conversations. So our first topic was on negotiating police chief contracts. And the second one was working with councils and making police board budgets. And there we just have an open Zoom call for people to come and ask questions and share their expertise. And it's very unscripted, which allows a very good wholesome hour of dialogue. I've learned a lot at both of these. Also, our board has passed the BCA PB awards process. I mentioned this last meeting, so I need to get busy doing some letters and some work, and we'll be packaging up these awards packages and sending them to all of the police boards, and then all of the municipal police boards and members of BCA PB can then move forward on acknowledging officers and civilian staff in this way. There's also one award that is for community recognition. So we'll be opening for members of the public to nominate members and staff of Vic PD who've made an impact in their lives. And lastly, we are also in the process of organizing our annual conference, which will be hosted in Nelson. Our last conference was hosted online, and it will be in May from the 25th to the 29th. Did you have a question?
No. Nice.
And that's my update.
Thank you for that. Thank you for all your work on that body. And I think it is really good for the Victoria Police Board to have the president of that association sit on our board. Any questions for Charla? Okay, seeing none. As I alluded to earlier in the meeting, at the very end of the agenda, we put items here to remind ourselves of the work we're doing and to let the public know as well. So we have the board strategic priorities. Colette and I have spoken, and the next report from board members to, committee chairs to the board, the quarterly reports are for February. And what we're going to do, again, for transparency and for the public, is put at the top of this chart on a permanent basis when each quarterly report will be coming forward, so the public knows what to expect. So to committee chairs, we know that you put a lot of work into these reports. They're very valued by the board and by the public. So Colette will be in touch with deadlines. And again, we can measure how we're doing against the priorities that we set for 2021 and 2022. Any questions on that? Okay, and then also we put as a standing item on our agenda the framework agreement in case anyone wishes to raise anything with respect to the framework agreement. Does anyone wish to raise anything with respect to the framework agreement? Okay. Then under new business, there are two items here for consideration, basically just for information. I guess the first one is a request from Victoria Council that Vic PD begins to record all and any hours and costs that Vic PD spends with patients apprehended under the Mental Health Act and Island Health Facilities. Is this a realistic request? The rationale behind it is to show the province the police time that's going into these things and the costs. Deputy Chief, are you able to speak to this?
It's a very rational request, and we can have it fairly simply. Actually, won't take a whole lot of effort. We already track the hours.
Great.
So just, and Mr. Herkel will have to convert that into policy.
Excellent. Okay,
What's the,
just to be reported triannually.
Right.
So every quarter or every third of the year, I guess, we're getting an update publicly on the costs incurred by this organization to service the hospital, essentially. Okay, good. Thank you. And the next is a letter from Chief. Can you speak to this
Lisa,
one?
I just
Yeah.
have a question
sorry.
to ask on that one.
Oh, sorry, Barb. Yes, go ahead.
If it's going to be reported out, it would be, my question was going to be, can it be reported out at the quarterly reports that we're receiving as councils?
Yes, that's the intention. I just said triannual because Victoria, with the pandemic, we've gone to 3 times a year rather than quarterly, but yes, exactly, same thing.
Okay, thank you. So it'll be included in the new report format as one of those items that we can see and understand.
Is that possible?
Mr. McIntyre answer that question. Like you referring maybe it's for it to go into open Vic PD or the actual quarterly report that we post on the website as a new section.
I just want to be able to find it and have it come forward on a regular basis and not have it disappear somewhere where we can't find it. So because of the change in format, it would be helpful to make it in some way part of that format so that we don't lose it. Thank you.
Yeah, leave it with me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks for that, Barb. Chief, did you wish to comment on this next one?
Yeah, sure, I can, Chair. So this is, as you can appreciate, that there's BC provincial policing standards around certification and officers maintaining their qualifications. As a result of COVID, a number of those mandatory qualifications were temporarily suspended by the Director of Police Services. And so now the Assistant Deputy Minister and Director of Police Services, Mr. Wayne Rideout, is basically putting police agencies and just giving boards notice that as we are coming slowly out of COVID, or we have safety measures in place to deal with COVID, that he is going to be lifting some of those temporary suspensions that he had put in place for training. Now, Vic PD has already been conducting our use of force training and our firearms requalifications. But for larger agencies, like he mentions in the letter, that the RCMP have over 4,000 members spread out the province. He's providing a timeline that in light of this, he feels that the suspension of the standards will end on May 1st, 2023. So he's giving a tremendous amount of latitude and time and notice so that agencies can make sure that all of their officers are requalified in many of the aspects which were temporarily suspended. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on that? Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
If I may through the chair, did I understand it correctly that the Vic PD is ahead of the curve in terms of doing its recertifications and trainings necessary? Because I think this is something that's obviously has a great impact on the potential safety of the members of the force as well as the public. Because some of these involve the use of force recertifications. So we are ahead of the curve, as I understand it. Is that right?
That's absolutely, yeah, that is correct. What we did is we took a very measured approach, safety being first. But we've been dealing with COVID now for a number, for a few years now, right? And so we've adapted. We know that our officers are double vaxxed, so they're being tested. We know that there's enough safety measures and protocols that we put in place. We still are not conducting reality-based training situations where it puts officers face to face. But most of these qualifications that we are able to do, even though they may be temporarily suspended, we are proceeding with, because to maintain the public's confidence and to have our officers be trained is obviously advantageous to our department. So we're going ahead and doing that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I need a motion to adjourn the meeting with best wishes to everyone, both in this room, online, the entire department and their families. A wonderful holiday season, and to the public, thank you very much for tuning in and joining us this evening. Motion to adjourn. Oh, wait. That just reminded me, you making a motion to adjourn. It's Patty's last meeting. So it's hidden underneath. So Patty, we have a presentation. It's good. We're bookending the meeting tonight with presentation. So Patty has served on this police board for 6 years through ups and downs and many challenges. She's been steadfast, practical, thoughtful, and really, really valued member of our board. She is Victoria's representative, so I feel extra proud and happy to have had you serve here. And we have something for you. It's a gift certificate for your favorite restaurant and a card with deep thanks from all of us. So I'll come and present that to you and just say thank you very much.
I'll just say that in 6 years, I've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I've been honored to serve. Thank you.
And I'm gonna miss you as my seat neighbor.
And we will give Patty the honor of moving the adjournment motion of her last board meeting. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Charlotte. Thank you very much. All those in favor?